I love the recording in progress. Always feels a bit scary, I find. Um, yeah, so it just takes a few minutes for people to wander in.
Hmm.
Um, oh wow, we've got a lot of people already. Oh wow, welcome everybody to Ben's Book Club. Welcome back to Ben's Book Club. Those of you who are returning, and a very big welcome to people who are new to Ben's Book Club. We're a book club that runs across Australia and New Zealand, and we focus on Australian authors specifically, and we interview an author each month. We read the book. There might be some spoilers today as well, so just FYI, if you're not quite through the audiobook, it might be put cotton wool in your ears for that section. Normally, what we do with Ben's Book Club, as people enter the chat, you can see everyone's already doing this. Michael, I don't know whether you can see everyone over in the
Yep.
chat.
I can see
People
lots
say
of
hi.
activity.
People say hi from where they're from, so it's just really fun. Um, Speaking as an author to actually see where people have been reading your book, man. So it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's exciting. Um,
All over the place. Great.
all over the place. Got my mum from Yarram. Um, Hi, Lynn. I was missing Bicheno today. I was thinking about the lobster shack there and the Warbs Harbour distillery, and I really need to get back to Bicheno, I can tell you that. Thurgoona, New South Wales. Ian, hello, Ian. Always reliable. Ian was always here. Sydney, Essendon West, my favourite football team.
Oh
Uh,
no, come on. Let's not go there.
oh, mate, it's been depressing in this season, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Got Chris from Newcastle, Nikki from Melbourne, Tweed Heads, West Ballina. Hello, Camilla. Oh, the Glengarry Pies back. Ah, okay. So this is where I like the pies because I have nephews who play for in Glengarry. So back, very welcome. Um, if you ever run into some local lads playing footy, might be my nephews. Carajung. Oh, good old Car. Sorry. So anyway, we have Michael. Michael Brissenden is here with us, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Brissenden is an author, a journalist. Um, and a writer of fiction. And the first book of his fiction was The List, and it was 2017 that came out, which was the first year my first book came out. But Michael's more prolific than me, so he's written more books. Second thriller, Dead Letters, which featured Sydney Allen as well, was published by Hachette in 2021. And then Smoke, which is our subject today, this cool book was published by a firm in 2024. And then Michael is just today has his new book out, which is Dust. I have a copy of it actually sitting on my shelf. I should have brought it in with me. But let's put our hands together for Michael. He can
Okay.
actually hear you claps. We've got microphones on all your laptops and devices, so he can hear it when you're clapping. Thanks, Ian. All the way from the UK, Michael. Michael, welcome. What's it feel like to have a new book entering the wild today? And just, you
Well,
know,
it's like, yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. It's
oh,
great to
pleasure.
be here.
I'm so excited to
Um,
talk to you.
you know, as you know, the build up to actually getting a book to publication and in the shops can be quite sort of stressful
Yes.
and
Yes.
anxiety making
Yep.
and all of those feelings and emotions. So it's great when it actually finally gets into the bookshop and you can go into the bookshop and see it and it's there and people are starting to read it and like you never really know how a book's going to go until it goes, until it's
Yes.
actually done and people start reading it and you start getting the responses from people and so far the responses to Dust have been really fantastic,
Oh,
but
that's awesome.
it's early days, like we've had quite a few early readers, but it's day one in the bookshops. So
That's
and
exciting, man.
I'm about to embark on a big 5 week tour through various regional areas in Victoria, New South Wales, and Queensland. So if anyone is around,
Oh,
um,
awesome.
you can find the schedule on my website or on Instagram. And yeah, so quite a few libraries.
Go check out, is it just michaelbrissenden.com? I assume if they
Yes.
Google, they'll be
Yeah,
able to
yeah,
find your website. You see
yeah.
Helen in the chat's actually talking about a Coffs Harbour talk.
Yep. Yeah, going to Coffs Harbour.
That's awesome. So Helen, you're gonna go there and gonna talk about his new book as well as this book. That's awesome, man. And then Orange Library as well. You are being busy. Five
Yeah,
weeks.
we're doing in New South Wales, we're doing a lot of libraries and quite a few in Victoria and a couple in Queensland.
Yeah, awesome. Have you ever had have you ever had an experience where, because I know I've spoken to Candace Fox and she said that this has happened to her a few times where she's actually been, on a train or something and then seen someone reading one of her books out in the wild sort of thing. Have you ever had that experience where you've actually seen a person reading like on a beach or something?
I have, and I've actually had other people, take photographs of people reading my books on
That's
trains
kind of
and,
creepy.
and sort of sending them to me, saying, look what's happening." But I actually have never had the courage to go up to them and say, "Hey, that's my book.
Yeah.
What do you think?"
Me too. My first book came out and I saw someone buying it in front of me in the line at a bookstore and I couldn't
Oh,
say,
no.
I couldn't do it. It felt so strange. Um, I want to start with this question for you, but I saw at the beginning of Smoke that it's actually dedicated to your mother,
Mm,
Rosemary,
yeah.
which is a beautiful name. But I was really interested to hear from you about how your mum influenced you just as a human being, but also in regards to you being a creative person and being a writer and a lover of reading books.
Yeah, that's a lovely question. And uh, look, I grew up in a family which was my father was a writer and a poet, and my mother was also a writer. Um,
Yeah.
she was a political scientist essentially, and she wrote a lot of non-fiction. She wasn't a fiction writer. Uh,
Yeah. Okay.
but our house, I grew up in Canberra in the 1960s and 70s, and I often say to people, if you think Canberra's boring now, you should have seen it in the 1960s and 70s. It was a pretty dull place.
Yeah.
But our house, because it was a small, Canberra was a small city, like a big country town in those days,
Yeah. Yep.
and there were sort of circles within circles. So my family really, my parents both worked at the ANU, and uh, the circle of people around that our house became sort of a social hub for a lot of those people. And so there were there were always writers in the house, and and my mother was an amazing cook. And in fact, she was a Southeast Asian cooking specialist, and she wrote the
Okay.
first big Southeast Asian cookbook,
Wow.
which was a very important work at that time. People like Elizabeth David and all those people blurbed it, as we say in the industry.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and so she was quite a formidable woman, like
Mm.
she traveled alone as a young woman in the 50s and the early 60s in Indonesia and Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
Mm. She, yeah, she was very a formidable woman ahead of her time. And I
Yeah.
dedicated the book to her because while I was writing the book, and people who've read the book will know there's a lot about a nursing home and an old woman in a nursing home, and the dementia deterioration
Yeah.
in the nursing home. And a lot of that was really based on my experience with her, because when I was writing the book, those were the last years of her life, and she was slipping
Oh,
away in a nursing home. This incredible mind. She had an amazing intellect, and it's devastating watching that happen.
yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's obviously devastating all the time, but particularly devastating when the person it's affecting is cherishes their
Yeah.
mind so much,
Her
and
life had been an intellectual life, like that.
yeah.
That had been her life. So, yeah, it was particularly hard to watch. Look, I'm sure it's hard to watch for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
This dementia is such a huge problem in our world. Uh,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
we're all living longer, and these are the consequences of that, I suspect.
Mm. Well, it's a beautiful, fragment and, testament to her. And it sounds like you got a lot of your it takes a particular type of like stubborn bravery to go, I'm going to do this
Yes.
and then like out of nothing write a whole book and edit it and pitch it and so
Yeah.
it sounds like you got a lot of that stuff from her. Hey, that's pretty
Yeah,
special.
look, people say to me, one of the things that is, the questions I often get is, what's this transition been like from being a journalist to being a fiction author?
Hmm.
And I just say nothing is more frightening than publishing fiction, I don't reckon. It's like, it's the hardest thing I've had to do because you reveal so much about yourself. It's you.
Yes.
When you're writing journalism, you're writing someone else's story or you're writing some analysis or commentary or whatever, but it's essentially someone else's story.
Mm.
And fiction is us. It comes from within. It's all all your
Yeah.
own story.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
you're not wrong. Like it's very like I my first book was about a young boy growing up on a whaling station with his dad, and his dad sort of toughening him up, and he's a sensitive soul. And it wasn't until someone said to me it was a story about masculinity, about being a father, and about vulnerability, and about sensitivity in a tough world. And I went, "What?"
yeah,
Have you ever
exactly.
had that
Right?
experience where you've read something back and you've been like, "Oh, I see what I was going at. That must have been what was in my head."
Exactly. And I've got, we all bring our own personal experience to our fiction, right? We are what we are, and we can't. Often that is something that's not a conscious decision at the time, but you go back and you look at it, you think, oh yeah, okay, I
Yeah.
sort of, I sort of get where that came from,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I often think it's like if you overthink it, you'll talk yourself out of writing it
yeah,
if you think too hard
yeah.
about it.
Too true. Yeah,
Yeah, because it's such a faithful exercise. Just so we've got 115 people here tonight, which is a huge turnout. Appreciate all of you tuning in to hear from Michael. We'll dive into a few more questions in a second, but I wanted to sort of encourage you all. A big thing that we love to do with Ben's Book Club, and I think where someone said this here somewhere. Um, yeah, so is it Doriana said, great to hear your book is being taken out smaller but nonetheless important communities.
Mm.
And so that's what we really feel we're doing with this book club as well, is that people who don't often get access to Michael and to seeing authors talk about their books, it's giving everybody access. But what we really love to do is encouraging you all to have your really great questions for Michael. Because what Michael's going to do is he's going to read, or I'm going to read your questions to him, and we'll answer hopefully a few of them. And the best question of the night is the one that we're going to award a copy of Smoke to. I wonder if I could actually get Dust as well. I'll
Yeah.
have to talk to the
Oh,
publishers
yeah,
because we,
we'll get
you
one.
reckon?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to send a physical copy out to you for the best question of the night. You can make Michael laugh. You can make him cry. Something interesting, something maybe he's never been asked before. But yeah, think about some good questions. Type them in the chat, and we'll hopefully get to them when we can. Um, I did have a question about journalism, but you've sort of talked about that a little bit already. So I'm going to talk. I'm going to ask you this question. I feel like with every book you sort of get taught lessons about writing and creativity and about yourself as well. And I was wondering with the list, which came out in 2017, that was the first one for you, the first
Mm.
work of fiction. What did
Mm.
you especially learn from writing that book about your own creative process that you've then applied to other things that you've worked on?
Uh, Yeah, look, that book really was based on a lot of my experience at the time at the time I was the defense and security correspondent for the ABC, and that was the time, in the middle, 2015, around that time when uh, we were all obsessed with domestic terrorism and its impact on various levels in our society. Like for me, I was hearing a lot of stuff from the intelligence community and law law enforcement community about
Yep.
how the difficulties they were having basically dealing with this, dealing with the communities, dealing with and then there were the politicos at all. There were politicians taking advantage of it, using it for their own political ends. There were all sorts of strands to this story. So broadly, that's where that story came from. But I
Yep.
think what I learned from that was that uh, over time, uh, I think I wrote that. I was more a journalist when I was writing that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
And I have since, I think journalists have a tendency to um, try and um, over explain everything. And
Hmm.
fiction is about letting the reader have some agency.
Yep.
and giving the reader the opportunity to actually join the dots themselves.
Yeah.
I think if my criticism of those early books, I still think it's a good book, but I do think I have progressed over time to be far more confident about letting some of that go, you know?
Mm.
And I think that's probably what I've learned over time, not necessarily just from that book, but just over the time I've been writing fiction, sort of the further
Yeah.
I've moved away really from journalism to into the fiction world.
Yeah, okay. And actually on that as well, I had another question sort of about your process a little bit. But I was really wondering what specific parts of your writing do you really labor over? And what I mean by that is, there's for me, my big thing is the way the sentences feel. Like I really labor over the rhythm of sentences. But I was wondering for you, is it scene work? Is it character? Is it like what's something that you really work hard at doing well because you think that's one of the most important parts of your work?
Well, what I tend to do is write very fast, and then I'll go back and really put in um, writing because uh, sometimes when your brain's going so fast, you're just going like this, and you're thinking about
Mm.
story, not really about uh, the way the sentences sing or uh, the joy of actually reading good
Yep.
writing, you know? And so I find I often go back and spend quite a lot of time um, building up uh, scenes and, not dialogue actually. Dialogue tends to come pretty quickly to me. Dialogue I'm pretty good at
Yep.
straight up, but I think I do need to go back and really sort of push the poetry back into it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Or I guess with journalism, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a journalist, but it feels
Oh, you
like
strip a lot of that out, right? Yeah,
stripping it back,
yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
You got to learn to put that stuff back in. That's very interesting. Um, I've got a question for you, and a few people have brought it up here, and it's been in a few of the reviews as well. And I've got a way of phrasing it that I'm hope's going to sort of help a bit. But with my book, The Death of John Lacey, I wrote that book, and very early on in the process, I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to get rid of all the dialogue marks. I love it when books do that. It feels, ancient. It feels more raw. It feels even stripped back, like the time mirroring it. So I just made a choice very early on in the process. And that book does a lot of things, and there's a lot of different things going, difficult ideas in that book. But the one thing that I find more often than any other thing in every review I read is about why'd you get rid of the dialogue marks? And I
Yeah,
just, I didn't know that that particular choice was going to be the
goes
main
on.
thing. People, because to me, it just felt like that's what the book was. I didn't think twice about it.
Mm.
And so on that, I've got a couple of questions here in the chat, but it's something that's been brought up in the Facebook group as well about your choice in this book to set it in America and not set it in Australia. And I
Mm.
was wondering if it was a similar thing where just early on you're just like, no, it's American. That's what I felt, and I want it to be there. And then now it's the sort of the thing people latch onto a lot. But I was just wondering about that choice in you and how I guess how you feel about it now. Like, I mean, with a year since the book's come out, yeah, just how you feel about that. Because I really loved the choice. I thought it was really interesting. I read a lot of Australian books.
Look, it could have been written here, no doubt about it. And there are a lot of similarities between the experiences here in a town like this that's had a fire go through it and a very similar sort of thing. And
Mm,
but uh, I got the idea for this, so it goes right back. The inspiration was the bushfires in Australia in 2020. Um,
yeah.
but I had come back from America. I'd reported quite a lot of fires in California. Um,
Yeah, okay.
and the experience wasn't one that I was, that was alien to me. I mean, the setting wasn't alien, so
You had a lot of familiarity with it, yeah.
yeah. But when those big fires hit the New South Wales south coast in
Yeah, I remember. Yep.
around Christmas 2019, well, my family has had a little house at a place called Depot Beach on the south coast of New South Wales since the early 1960s. It's been there 60 years, right? It's this tiny,
Wow.
tiny little community.
Yep.
And I was driving between Sydney and Canberra, and I was listening to the ABC emergency broadcast, and they said anybody in Depot Beach and North Doris, these two little communities who are there now, it's too late to leave, shelter in place. There's nothing you can do.
Yeah, that's
And it's
scary.
an 8 kilometre drive in from the highway. So it's there's one road in, one road out.
Hmm.
Uh, couldn't call anybody, didn't know what was going on. And, we had those little fire maps on our phones, we could see the fire approaching, and it just went wham like that to the coast. Everyone thought it's gone, it's over. And at that point, um, I had this idea that, well, what if somebody used that moment to commit a crime,
Yep, yep, yep.
this crisis? And so I started sort of thinking about that idea, and then I started writing about that idea, and then I just started talking to a lot of people, and people were very raw. People were really sort of quite upset, obviously, about
Yeah.
what happened. And all of those communities in that area were upset, but and so I was talking to my agent in America, and we were talking about how I had covered fires in California and all the rest of it. And I just thought, well, why don't I just take it right out, really remove it, and go to California and
Yeah.
research the book in California, and just take the idea, but remove it from anywhere that anybody might associate with themselves.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so
So
it's like
that,
a safety
so
thing.
that's what I did. But I could have certainly said it in Australia. There would have been a few differences, obviously,
Mm.
but I felt better about taking it out and putting it somewhere else. It
Yeah.
made it easier for me to write, uh,
Yeah, okay.
and I still think it was the right decision. But
Yeah, cool. I'm
I don't
glad
know.
because
I don't
I
know.
think so too. Like I enjoyed the setting especially.
And it
And
was a challenge. It was a challenge to do that as well.
yeah,
It was an extra writing challenge for me that I thought at the time was a good thing to do. Yeah.
absolutely. And you need to be that, you need to have that creative stimulus, I think.
Mm.
But it's hard, hey, because in hindsight, you get these questions sometimes, and not even questions, but you question yourself all the time, right, about your decisions.
Mm.
But sometimes they just feel like the right choice, and you can't, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel like you ha can explain it. It's just like this is what the book is, you know?
Yeah, yeah. That's just the way it was. That's where it went. And there were so many things about doing that were actually in hindsight, or even when I was doing the research, I thought, yeah, well, that's great because it's new, it's different. There's something about
Something
this
different about it. Yeah.
I wouldn't have found, I wouldn't have discovered if I'd said it here.
Yeah,
It's
that's
been
fair.
in the
That's a
book.
good answer, man. We have a question from Jenny Sinclair in the chat here, and we've got some great questions to get to too. But Jenny asks, you explore crime, but then against the backdrop of bushfires and climate tension,
Mm.
and I would even say political tension as well. But how do you sort of do that balance where you're writing this gripping thriller and then you've got these, and Jenny puts it really well, while also interrogating urgent.
Oh, I've lost you. Hang on. Have I lost you there? Are you there?
Oh,
Oh, you're
oh,
back. You got back?
I don't think we have Ben back.
Oh,
Apologies.
okay. No problem.
Apologies. Well, go on, Michael. Let me just find the question.
The question was about, I guess the big issues that are involved in that are included in the story too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
So I think look, obviously I bring my experience uh, to what I write, and as a journalist of so many years, I have had, I am across the news and have covered all of these things. But I like to think that actually a crime novel is. Someone said to me the other day that crime fiction has become the new social novel. And in a way, the sorts of things and the themes that are running through our society at the moment uh, are all things that need to be reflected or are reflected in pretty well at the moment in this sort of modern wave of crime fiction. Because I think if you're writing, as we're writing contemporary crime fiction, it's the you can't. Well, I don't think when you're writing particularly about places like and experiences that people are having. They're living a modern life. They're living their life now, and the sorts of political currents that are running through our lives, the social currents that are running through our lives, all of those things, which, as a journalist, I was fairly finely attuned to, uh, are naturally going to come through in my fiction. And I don't even really consciously think of it, but in the end, they become very important themes that uh,
Mm.
uh, tend to develop through the writing of the novel. And I think, also crime fiction, if we look at it as a sort of the social novel of our era, we're dealing with corruption, we're dealing with volatile politics, we're dealing with climate change, these are the sorts of realities of our modern life, and in a way, it's unavoidable to do that. And I think, look, I'm sure people could write books without doing that, but they're the sort of books I write because that is my sort of fairly direct experience.
Um, Thank you. I missed half your answer. I'm sorry, I disappeared. That's never happened before. Can I say also sorry, everyone in the chat? I've lost all of your questions. So, do you mind rewriting your questions? Because I thought there were some great ones there, and I've lost them, unfortunately. Um, I've got a question from my own thing here. Thank you, Ian. Ian forgives me, guys. So thanks, Ian. He's got my back always, Ian does. But I thought this question hopefully is a good one. But about smoke, what is your favorite part of this book? Is it a character, a scene, a moment, something personal?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of it is the family relationships, and I think
Mm,
the Alex Markov as a character in the book is someone who is a real and her father in particular are the two characters in that book that for me um, uh, meant the most, and I think are the most well drawn really. Um,
mm,
both of them come from uh, both of them reflect, I guess, my experience with real people in a way that they are sort of loosely based on people that I have met over time. She
yeah.
she is really a sort of a reflection of a lot of the. I wanted to write a female police character of about her age because I had met quite a few over the course of my career who had sort of got to this point in their early 40s, having sacrificed an enormous amount, as everybody does who is a police officer. You see a whole lot of stuff, you experience a whole lot of stuff, you do a lot of dirty work, you do shift work, you have to deal with with some of the worst aspects of our world, and that has
Mm,
a huge impact on you. Plus, you also have to deal with often um, uh, I guess the temptations of that career, the potential
mm,
option, all that sort of stuff. And so, I remember one female police officer about that age told me, it's like, and others have said similar things. It's like everything you see is a drop in a glass, everything, and eventually the glass gets full, and there's no more room. That's it, and you're done. And then you go, well, what have I sacrificed to get to this point? Was it worth it? You start
mm.
trying to assess what the whole thing was worth. So many of them have had bad relationships because of the nature of the work that they've done.
Yeah, yep.
They haven't, um, uh, they've sacrificed their time so much. They haven't had families, they haven't had whatever, and they get to be in their early 40s. They reach a certain ceiling as well. You don't get much past a certain promotional point. It's a
Yeah.
pretty misogynistic environment still, and all of that has a huge impact on women of a particular age after having spent their entire time there. So I wanted to
Mm,
really invest this character with a lot of that experience that I'd taken from other people,
yeah.
and her father, and the whole immigrant experience of her father, and the fact that he was a sort of a mix of quite a few people as well. But when I was in a correspondent in Moscow in the early 90s, I met a lot of people who'd been survivors of the gulags,
Mm,
and they were very, very damaged, but very interesting people, and
yeah.
often often they just wanted to do whatever they could to get the hell out of there, but they were just so badly damaged by their experience. Um, and so I invested a lot of that
Yeah.
in him. So, yeah, and their relationship and the difficulties of their relationship and how he was so invested in his son who died, and she was like the sort of,
Yeah.
also ran and, like, yeah, to me,
Yeah, it's a very you drew it very like there's a lot of complexity to it. There's a lot of layers to it. Yeah, that's cool, man. Like that's the most thing you're proud of the most from it. We've got actually a few questions about Alex from the chat. People seem to really, really love her. But first question is from Kim Munt, who asks, "Do you have thoughts of another book with Alex as the main character? Will we see Alex again?"
yeah. Look, I think so, but I just wasn't ready to write another book in America, and I don't really want to be an American author,
Mm,
But but I can certainly see myself doing another book with her because I think there's a lot more to explore with her as well as an individual.
yeah,
Uh, and with this book, Dust, it sort of came out of thinking about should I write another book with her in America, and I started um, uh, thinking about that. And at the time, people may remember this, but there's a lake near Las Vegas called Lake Mead in Nevada, and it had started to completely dry up. And they were finding bodies and all sorts of stuff in the lake. And it's a similar sort of idea to the smoke idea, like, when you when a fire strips away the canopy, you start seeing all these things that people had perhaps wanted to be hidden and were
Ah,
you never knew were there. The same thing came to me about the lake sort of drying up and all these things revealing themselves. And I thought there was an opportunity to write another book there, but I just really didn't want to write a book set in America. And I remembered that there are plenty of lakes in Australia that do that too, but one in particular, Lake Cargelligo in New South Wales, did it during the big drought. And so I, this is Dust is not set in Lake Cargelligo. Made up a town, but I took that idea
yeah,
and brought it to Australia. So, in a way, this came from thinking about how I might do another a sequel to Smoke. But actually,
yeah,
I just wasn't really invested in doing another book in America. I wanted to come back and write a book in Australia.
yeah. And I guess it feels a bit awkward to just have her at the start of the book moving to Australia, but.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure that would have worked.
Oh, I don't know. You could
You
have
never
the
know.
like, how Thor comes to Earth and he's like, "What do you mean this coffee?" Like, you could have her.
Yeah.
What's a Tim
Call
Tam?
this,
Could be
call
fun.
this a flat white. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, having Vegemite spread too thick on the toast.
Yeah.
Um, Jody asks about just a general research question, but how did you approach researching the US policing process? And I guess from Alex's perspective, you want to get that stuff really accurate to life. So how did you go about doing that?
That is a great question, and it's one that had a really fortuitous outcome because you can imagine how many people. Well, first of all, uh, California has something like 76 different police jurisdictions, right? So,
That's
if you
already blowing my mind.
yeah, so if you wanted to set this in Queensland or Victoria or New South Wales or any state in Australia, and you wanted to furlough somebody to back to the town that they came from and suspend them, but put them on minor duties or whatever, it'd be very easy to do because it's one police force, right? It's
Yep.
more difficult to do in California. There are lots of things I needed to know about her, like where would a 43-year-old police sergeant live in California, in LA, for instance, because they don't like to, they don't get paid a huge amount of money. They don't like to live in the same area of the people they're policing because
Mhm.
you run into the people on the street that you're arresting. Uh,
Makes sense.
and how would an internal affairs investigation work? How would that? What are the consequences of that? How would that flow through? And I had been in touch with a few people from LA PD, but you can imagine how many people want to write books and contact
Yes.
the LA Police Department
Yep.
about,
Yep.
can you give me some time to tell me all the secrets? Anyway, a couple of them got back to me and said, look, I don't know if I'm around, when you get to LA, here's my number. Maybe I'll be around, or maybe I'll give you the time. So I left on this research trip to California, and I landed in LA, and I had no real contacts, but I knew I really needed to sort this out. So I thought, what can I do? And I had a hire car. I said, I'll just drive up to the police academy. So I drove up to the police academy, which is up on in the mountain above LA. And I drove straight into the car park. There was no security. I parked the car. I got out. There was a live firing exercise going on in a paddock next door.
Yep.
Walked straight up to the front door, walked through the front door, no security. There was no one around. I walked through the next door, and that was the armory. And all these guys were strapping on their armored vests and their guns and everything to go to the live firing exercise.
Jeez.
And you can imagine what would happen if you did that in, Sydney. Like,
Yeah.
just be like, for a start, you'd never get that far. But also, they would just sort of march you out and say, away you go. Anyway, this guy said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Look, I'm a writer. I've just got a few questions about policing in California. Can you help me?" He said, "Yeah, sure. Come with me. I'll take you down to the chief's office." So we went down to the chief's office, and the chief wasn't there, but there was a 43-year-old female sergeant who gave me about 2 hours of her time and took me.
That's amazing.
So
That's
it was very, very lucky, but it was great,
yeah.
you know.
That's very fortuitous. That's amazing.
But I do think that is also part of my, when we're talking about this transition from being a journalist to being a fiction writer, a lot
Hmm.
of it is quite similar when you're doing that sort of research. And I do think there is a lot of experience that I bring to that from being a journalist for such a long time. That is
Yeah.
having the front for a start to just go and walk in, to be direct with people, and in a lot of cases not necessarily taking no for the first no as
Yeah.
the definitive no, you know. So
You
yeah,
persist. Yeah. Where yeah, authors can be a bit shy and, reclusive and just never talk to anybody if they don't have to, right? And so you're a bit more out there in the world. That's cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
good skill to have. Um, Ellie says this, as a woman and also someone who has seen a lot of corruption in the workplace, it was inspiring for me to read Smoke and then about Alex as well. I could relate to Alex and the struggle she went through from both staying quiet to fit in and then also speaking up for justice and how that doesn't go down well. That's tough, hey, that question of do I say something? If I say something, it's jeopardizing my career. But
Exactly.
she says something and it does, jeopardize her career. But can you talk about that particular aspect of Alex's character that she'll do the right thing even if it costs her?
Yeah, but it took her a long time to get to that point. And I think that's she went down that rabbit hole of corruption.
Mm.
She went with them. She went with them all the way until that final drop to the glass, and there was too much and she couldn't take any more.
Yeah.
Had to do something. She had to break it, and she was looking for, because she had such a dysfunctional family and such a dysfunctional relationship with her father, and she found another family within the police force. She was seduced by that.
Mm.
She ended up obviously in the relationship that she ended up with, and she went down a rabbit hole with those corrupt cops, knowing that she was crossing the line, but at some point she morally couldn't do it anymore. And
Yeah. That's, I think, what adds to her realism. Like that feels like a real thing, right? Like we've all compromised until yeah. It would be unrealistic for her to be a goody two shoes the whole time.
exactly, exactly. And she was so torn and tortured by that, the fact that
Yeah.
she'd actually done that and closed her eyes to it all for such a long time.
Yeah.
And then when she did blow the whistle, of course, the fingers of corruption run deep, and deeper than she thought, and they turn it back on her. So, um, yeah.
Did you always have and there's a few questions about Alex and her background especially, but did you always have that whole corruption angle story? I mean, before you met this police officer who then gave you more info, was that something that sort of developed as you wrote the book?
I can't really remember now, to be honest. I think, but, for me, uh, people often ask this question: do you map it out? Do you
Yeah.
sort of plot everything? And I don't really, but I sometimes I do have character traits and things that are going to impact and influence the way the story develops, and that in turn influences the development of the character, and sometimes that'll go somewhere where I never thought it would go. But I do think with her, I did have that essential conflict in her from the very beginning. I knew that that was something that was really going to be important to explore as part of her character.
Yeah.
That was not, as we were discussing before, she was not, uh, she was not to blame. She also had to take some
Yeah.
responsibility for what had happened and where she'd gone.
Yeah, and I really liked the recurring motif of the dreams, the
Mm.
haunting of like she's haunted by this choice, and she never puts those words to it, but that's how it felt. Like it felt like it still sits in her gut a bit and sort of
Exactly.
powers what she does from this point forward, you know.
That
She's
was
like,
that moment, the moment that broke her, is
mm,
she can't really actually ever get out of her head.
yeah, and it sort of seems like that the cost of that choice or
Mm.
the moral corruption up until that point seems to power a lot of what she does in Smoke, where she's like, I'm not doing that. Like
Yes.
she's sort of
She's
responded to it. Yeah.
crossed another line and gone, right, okay, that was not the right, I'm going to change, right?
Yeah,
Things,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, she's resolved. So yeah, a lot of love for Alex. You've also sold a copy of Dust here to Beck. I can't wait to read Dust, Beck says. So you've got another reader there, mate. So well done. It does sound cool. The pitch is really cool of Dust. So
Good.
hope it goes well for you. And obviously, go and check out Michael too when he's on tour. Go to all the libraries and things and support him. Because, yeah, like he was saying, like you don't get a lot of authors out to local communities. So if you're nearby, make sure you check it out. Um, Rosemary asks this question. I actually had the similar question, Rosemary. And it was about in your research in developing the character of Mackenzie
Mm.
specifically, but then sort of that relationship between the Australian First Nations people and then the Native American indigenous population there. There seems there's parallels there between the two, but it also seems quite distinctly American as well. So I was wondering about that. Like, did you see those links? And then in what ways do you think perhaps it is unique to America, or do you feel like there's sort of a similar story in both nations?
I think there were so many parallels to that that were really surprising in many ways. And, a lot of it comes down to this whole idea that the indigenous people who are still living in these areas, in these towns, particularly timber towns like this,
Yeah.
their land was taken from them, but they ended up working in the timber industry until the timber industry became rationalized to the point where it no longer needed workers. And so they'd not only lost their land, but they'd lost their livelihoods as well, and they were often left, wondering like what all that was about for a start.
Mm.
Being
Yeah.
completely disenfranchised by the whole experience, obviously, and the parallels with our own Indigenous experiences in that regard is pretty strong. But also this whole idea that their uh, their cultural practices had been ignored
Yeah.
when it came to forest management and how the forests were managed
That's incredible.
the same thing. Like I met this guy who he took me to. He said to me, um, right up until the end of the 20th century, the elders in the tribe were told they were not allowed to pursue their cultural practices, but they would disregard that and they'd go around with Zippo lighters and they would light up the forests at particular times that were culturally significant with one eye on the forest and one eye looking for the ranger to make sure that they weren't, uh, and in a way that helped still manage a lot of the forests, a lot of the forestry. But they all
Yeah.
died out. They all died out at the end of the 20th century, and the practice had basically stopped for more than 20 years. And that was part of the one of the problems. I mean, there are a number of problems in that the forests are drying out, that they're monocultures. There's a whole lot of issues about how the
Mm.
how explosive those forests have become. But one of them is the disenfranchisement of the indigenous population in the forest management and how they feel about it. And now
Mm.
a lot of the forestry and fire management people are going back to them and saying, "Oh, actually, we probably do need to listen to what you were doing."
Yeah. At least there's a lesson learned there, but it does seem like it's a bit of a shame it took so long to
Yeah,
realize.
yeah. And
Yeah.
this is another story. I won't go into it too long, but they were really hard to connect with as well. And I had an address for a local tribe, which was in a tribe in around a town where I had covered a fire a number of years before. And I just drove up. It was about a 6 hour drive, and I drove up and I found it, but the place had burnt down because the fire had gone through and burnt down their sort of community building and whatever. Anyway, I did eventually track them down, but um, they said to me, "Well, you sort of." I said to them, "I want to know what, if any, contact." What, if any, of your experience had been taken up over this time in forest management and all the rest of it? And this woman who was the leader of the tribe, she said to me, "You're the first person who's asked us this,"
Oh,
you know,
wow.
which was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing. I had a question on Mackenzie as well as Alex, but just in general, writing characters, I guess specifically Alex, because you are, so deeply embedded in her as a character, but
Mm.
she's obviously a very different person to you. And Mackenzie is too, and I mean, every character in this book, you were talking earlier, they're all extensions of you in some ways,
Mm.
but you want to make them, and everyone's really, responded to Alex like a really believable, Ellie saying, this was a feminine perspective that felt really authentic. I was just wondering what goes into that. Like, how do you imagine yourself as these different types of characters with these histories, writing from that perspective, but at the same time, you're not, you know what I mean? Like, it's tricky. How do you do that? I'm really interested.
Uh, yeah, look, I, you know, I get it. I get why people think it's tricky, but people ask me often, how do I write a female character like this?
Hmm,
I just say, well, I'm not sure how many times Jane Harper's been asked how she writes a male character, right?
that's fair.
Um, we write characters based on our experience of the people we know, the people
Yeah.
we met, the motivations we see in
Hmm.
in a lot of real instances and real characters and real people. And I often will work on a character over time without actually knowing where I'm going to place it, like not having a book for it. I've got a file in my
Oh,
laptop
okay.
working on, like the father character, Leo Markov. I was working on that character for quite some time, but I didn't really have a spot until I started this book. And I thought,
That's
that's this
interesting.
guy. That's where
Yeah.
he's going, right? Um,
Yeah.
so, uh, you know, I would never try and it's a hard one because with the indigenous characters in particular, I don't think you can write a book about this sort of stuff without putting that perspective in there.
I agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
100%.
And I'm not writing uh, through that character. I'm writing
No,
that
not
character
in.
that into the book, right? Um, the Alex character, I get that's far more. She's far more central to the narrative. It's seen
Mm.
her through the entire book.
Yeah.
And I'm just pleased that it worked.
Yeah. It seems very authentic, I think, to people.
Um, I have a lot of female readers
Yeah.
close to me who read my work,
Yeah.
including two very opinionated daughters and a and a partner. So I'm sure if I'd got something egregiously wrong, it would have been
Yeah.
gone.
They'd
Um,
pull you in.
yeah.
I had
So
a, I had a scene from one of my books where I have a female perspective, writing from a female perspective, and she was I had a scene where she was thinking about something in the shower, and I know this will sound really dumb, but I was like, I don't know how my body would work
mm,
do you know what I mean? Like it's just you don't realize just how distinctly different, but at the same time how familiar it is. I don't know.
mm, mm,
Just something I think about, I think. But you mentioned your partner Tracy, right, and your two daughters.
yeah.
Because I was reading the acknowledgements, and there's a beautiful little part in there where you acknowledge just, the love and support of your family. But beyond being specific readers of characters, but how have they supported you? Like, what have they done for you over the years in supporting your passions, your love?
Look, followed me all over the world. We've lived in some weird and wild places like Moscow and um,
That's incredible.
Brussels, US, Washington,
Yeah.
uh, which I think has given us all an enormous lot of experience, and it's been a great and rewarding thing to do. But I
Hmm.
accept that it hasn't been easy all the time for to uproot a family and move around like that. You know,
Mm.
that has been that has had its challenges. So I think that has been an enormous amount of support. Um, when I said, I left the ABC in 2021 after the 35 years, and when I said I was doing that, like that's a big step to make,
Yeah. Yep. Risky.
and you want to have you want to have the full support of all the people that are close to you when you do something like that, and they really did give it, yeah, 100%.
Mm. Yeah. You can't. It's a yeah. Yeah, and it's hard to quantify, isn't it? Just the amount of support you get just from people bringing you down to earth sometimes too, right?
Absolutely.
Like it's
Exactly.
yeah,
That's right. Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm here talking with Michael Brissenden about books and writing, and I'm going to be going out to do the dishes after this. You need to be brought back down to earth sometimes. Um, there's a question here from Mary that I'd love to ask you too, but and Kim sort of has something similar to this, but it's specifically about the ending. So
Mm.
if anyone sort of got spoiler alert, I need a siren or something, like a button where I can press it and there's a anyway, where we leave Alex, like she actually in the end, goes back to her post and she goes back to this place that was corrupt. And Mary's question is pertaining to that. Like, why is she so hopeful that things might change here? Why do you think that is? And then Kim is specifically mentioning Alex's parents and sort of like a bit of a question mark about what would happen with Alex's parents as well. But yeah, just your answers on those two questions.
Well, firstly, she goes back and realizes that the victory that she thought she had, she hasn't actually got. So
Mm,
that she thought she had actually won this particular battle with these corrupt people, and realizes that actually, like smoke, it's hard to hold on to. It's just,
yeah.
you can't, it's everywhere, and you think you're winning, and you're really like you're up against forces that are much bigger than you, and that is the realization she comes to at the end. That so in a way, it's you think that she's winning, you think she's won, and you get to the end, and she realizes, holy hell, I haven't. This is much bigger than I thought, and
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
every and her parents. Well, her parents are, Leo's on his way out, dead. He's dying. I think in the end, he's gone. And her mother is on her way out too. So she's going to be the last. She's going to be left. Um,
Mm.
she's going to be left on her own.
Yeah, but I guess that was going back to what you were saying earlier about sort of letting readers connect a few dots there, right? You don't
Yeah, yeah,
see where she goes.
yeah. It's not entirely spelled out, but it's very
Mm.
clear that hasn't actually she hasn't ended up where she thought she was going to end up.
Yeah, and I kind of like the idea of a person who, despite knowing that, things probably won't work out the exact way she hopes, but it's still a worthy battle. Like I
Yeah,
kind of like the sound of
it's
that
not
person.
exactly. It's not like, oh, I haven't won out. That's the end of it. I'm overwhelmed. It's no, no. I'm going to fight. It's this is
Yeah.
this is not over. Right. That's the realization. She thought it might have been over, but no, no, it's not over.
Yeah, it's pretty brave to go back into the arena again, right? After all that. There's a few people saying that they really liked that particular part of it, like that she did end up going back
Mm.
and sort of facing things, I think, as well as the feeling that we're getting from the chat a bit. Um, yeah, yeah, sorry, I'm just reading a couple of these. Penny has said, only just started reading Smoke, but Michael, your insight and wisdom has hooked me already.
Oh, that's nice to
I think Penny's angling for the best question award.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are nearly out of time, Michael, which is a bit incredible to me because it feels like it's just flown by. But if you've had any questions, I mean, feel free to read through the chat as well. If there's any questions in there that you want to highlight as being your favorite of the evening, have a bit of a look. But while Michael's having a look and sort of thinking back over our chat today, next month. So we do Ben's Book Club on the fourth Tuesday. Ian, help me. Fourth Tuesday of every month. But next month we are interviewing Ian, and we're looking at this book as our focus. Everything I do, though, thanks, Ian. Everything I do is on the Facebook group. So if you go to Ben's Book Club on Facebook, we often post things about what we're thinking about the books and just general things. But I'll post a link to next month's interview, which is The Dream, another detective, 1980s Gold Coast thriller, which is kind of cool. I don't think I've ever read a book that specific time in that area, so I'm looking forward to reading that. But Michael, do you have any comments from today that you wanted to give a book to?
Look, I think the person who asked the question about the police and how you manage to you know deal with researching a very
Mm.
police environment is probably the question I would give it to. I think that was
So now I guess
insightful, very insightful question.
I think it's probably this one here from Christine. How did you develop Alex's backstory, especially LAPD past? I think we'll go with that one. I'm sorry if there's another one that was up a bit earlier. I've lost all my questions. It might have been earlier, but we'll go with Christine. Congratulations, Christine. How did you develop Alex's backstory? Is Michael's favorite question. What we'll be doing, actually, if you wouldn't mind, see if I can do this here. Finagle my. Wasn't COVID fun in that it taught us all to use Zoom technology?
Did it? I
I,
don't know.
I don't know.
Sometimes I struggle.
I'm still learning. I just put my website there. If you go there, there's an email link. You can send me an email and then we can get your details that way rather than entering in personal details into the chat here. But Michael, just wanted to say thank you again. I am really looking forward to reading Dust. I
Right.
hope it goes really well. And it's kind of cool. Like, have you put the four books that you've written next to each other yet and have it like you've got your own personal Brissenden library?
Yeah, it's still pretty small though. Yeah, so
Well, I'm
hopefully,
enjoying.
hopefully we'll get a shelf by the
Yeah,
end.
yeah. Well, I'm enjoying the expansion of the shelf. We'd love to have you back as well.
Great.
Um,
Thank you so much for having me. It's great having the interest. It's really terrific. And thank you
yeah,
for the
and I don't
question.
know whether you can
Well,
see the
brilliant.
chat there, Michael, but everyone's just really grateful to you as well, and just thank you to you, especially for giving up your time to come and chat with us and talk about your book. Um, maybe this time next year we'll have to do Dust or something, hey?
Yeah, sure. Very happy to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks everybody for being a part of Ben's Book Club, and thank you, Michael, and thank you, Overdrive and Libby, for sponsoring everything. And we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks
See
so
you
much.
later.
Thanks, Ben.
Bye.